Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
All right, welcome back to another exciting venture here on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie the Chickadee, along with my oh so patient and loving co-host, Howard Davis of Fair U.S. Task Force. Oh man, we got ourselves a really great show going on today. We got Frank Salvato. People know him from the Underground USA podcast, but he's also someone who has a lot of other things and a lot of other pies and huge, great fan I am of his. Um, we also have followed by a former South Carolina GOP chair, Chad Connelly. He was also the first to do the national faith chair nationwide. I think that was under Trump. I'm not sure. Chad happens to be an old friend of mine. Goes back to the start of the Tea Parties and when he became the first chair of South Carolina GOP. So we're going to have him talk about it. What's going on in D.C., and I'm thinking Chad may be over there, is the Faith and Freedom Summit. And as I left a few minutes ago, Trump was addressing it. It's at the Washington Hilton, where he had the shooting at the Correspondents' Dinner. He's over there speaking now. I was catching some of it. It was sounding really great, really fantastic. I wish I could have stayed for more, but
we got stuff to do. That's neat, though. I never heard of that.
Yeah, the Faith and Freedom Summit. Yeah, it's been big. It's been around for a while. Bear with me. I got my other computers misbehaving.
Take your time.
I want to shoot it. I honestly really do want to shoot it. If you see sparks flying and everything else, I just turned around and took my service revolver and blew the screen apart. Oh, anyway, we have a lot that's going on too. Trump seems to have made some sort of memorandum of agreement with Iran. They've already broken it by sending a drone out and hitting one of the vessels coming through. I think it was a Swiss vessel that they attacked. It was a single drone. No one was hurt. No one was killed, thankfully. But I guess they're waiting to see what Trump is going to do. At the same time, at the Faith and Freedom Summit, as I was watching, he announced an agreement between Lebanon and Israel.
Interesting.
That was huge. That was huge. Going on just as I walked out of the room and I go, whoa. 5 minutes to go. I got to find out what's going on. So I caught just a couple of moments on it. And then I had to rush to get the show going here. But there's a lot going on. Trump is holding up the signing of his housing bill because he says he wants to stay that path. We're going to be talking about that. I don't see why, because it's not just 84% of Republicans want this, 84% of the nation. It doesn't matter what side the political divide we're on. 84 people of the United States, 84% of the people here in the United States want to say that. I mean, you think about it. You go to cash your check, you need ID. You want to buy beer or alcohol, you need ID. You need to go into a court, you need ID. You need to do anything. You have to drive certain prescriptions or over-the-counter medications, like Sudafed or something like that, because those chemicals are in it. You need ID to purchase it.
You need an ID to go see an R-rated movie without your mom. You know, you need an ID. So
I don't know how long that's going to happen with my mom being 94 next week.
Yes, that's exciting. I hope you're planning a big bash for her.
Well, it's going to be some neighbors and some family. They're going to come over.
Yeah.
My sister's coming from Florida. So, I mean, you got to think about it. 94 years old. She's seen more than 1/3 of this nation's history.
That's insane.
Yeah, more than 1/3. She's lived through. She's lived through the Great Depression as a child, World War II, the the Korean War. Her brother was served in the MASH unit. My father was a World War II veteran. I mean, all the things that she has seen, and then at the same time raising a family.
Does she have a favorite decade?
I'm sorry?
Does she have a favorite decade?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
She married my dad.
Probably.
Yeah, probably the decade she married him. Because they were together for 65 years before he passed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He passed just right after their anniversary.
Mm.
I joked with him because when they told me that he had been in the hospital, I said to my dad on the phone, I said, Dad, I told you to take Mom someplace nice. I thought maybe to a hotel or something, not to a hospital.
Not to the hospital. You know how men are. They never listen.
Oh, man. Like I said, we get so much to talk about. And we have some stuff that was coming up on FAIR, some groundbreaking stuff dealing with the Supreme Court, get my teeth in straight, and some other cases that have come through. Oh, man, I don't even know where to start.
Supreme Court's been busy. Yeah, they have.
Very, very busy.
Mm-hmm. Nothing on birthright citizenship yet, but we've got a few immigration wins out of the Supreme Court. So
yeah, we're crossing our fingers, and I mean, I've got a stack of notes right here, for today.
I believe it.
But before we get started, those that listen to our show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Trooper Kevin Trainor of the Massachusetts State Police. His end of watch was Wednesday, May 6th of this year. And this is his dedication.
Today, the Massachusetts State Police mourns the line of duty death of Trooper Kevin Trainor.
A state trooper tragically killed in the line of duty. 30-year-old trooper Kevin Trainor died after a wrong-way crash in Linfield early this morning. And this afternoon, fellow troopers and Boston first responders came together to honor him. They lined the streets outside of the state medical examiner's office as officials escorted his body from the hospital. Mountain State Police said Trainor was headed home from his shift just before 2 this morning when he responded to a call of a wrong-way driver on Route 1 north of Linfield. The Essex County DA said Hernan Marrero was driving a Jeep south in the northbound lanes. He crashed with Trooper Trainor's cruiser minutes after that call came in. Marrero died on the scene. Trooper Trainor later died in the hospital. Governor Maura Healey called him a hero.
Trooper Trainor died a hero, and were it not for his actions, there would be a lot of grieving families today.
Kevin epitomized what it means to be a public servant in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Kevin represents the best of the best.
Governor Healey ordered flags to be flown and have staff to honor the fallen trooper. They will stay that way until sunset on the day Trooper Trainor is laid to rest.
And we're learning more about who Trooper Trainor was. In 2023, he graduated with the 88th Recruit Training Troop. In 3 years on the job, we know that he made a huge impact. He mentored younger troopers, and he earned a spot on the prestigious Trooper Community Action Team. He previously served as a corrections officer in Essex County. Now, the Essex County Sheriff releasing a statement in part. It reads in part, Kevin was someone his colleagues could count on. He was steady, respectful, and committed to doing the job the right way. His decision to continue his career with the Massachusetts State Police reflected his deep commitment to public service and his desire to protect others. Meanwhile, a memorial is growing outside the State Police barracks in Danvers. We talked with some people who were there paying their respects.
I worked down the road. I just wanted to come down and give him my respect.
The oath he did what he was supposed to do. And then in the process, he wanted to save lives.
These guys are out there, they're doing their job, and something like this happens. It's terrible.
Well, friends and family of Trooper Trainor are remembering him tonight. Our NBC 10's Jericho Tran joining us live with that part of our coverage. Jericho, what did they share?
Well, Priscilla, Colton, you guys have used the word a lot. Hero. The people close to State Trooper Kevin Trainor say that he was always very passionate about his career in criminal justice, and he also loved superheroes. So it's no coincidence that he died a hero.
I want him to know that his life meant a lot, and it's not in vain.
The loss of State Trooper Kevin Trainor weighs heavily on his family. His aunt, Ann Cater, says serving in law enforcement was Trainor's calling.
He was a servant for the people. He was willing to do anything to protect and serve the public.
Trainor received his bachelor's degree from Salem State University.
He wanted to be a police officer. He went to school for criminal justice. That was his bachelor's degree.
Kayla Holak dated Trainor back in 2019 and attended his graduation at the Essex County Sheriff's Department.
He just wanted to help people, and he thought that police officers were kind of like superheroes, real world superheroes.
We lost a hero today. Kevin Trainor was a hero.
Trainor began his career as a correctional officer in Essex County, graduating from the 88th Recruit Training Troop in 2023.
At just 30 years old and a trooper of only 3 years, Kevin epitomized what it means to be a public servant.
Trainor's passion and commitment for his career underscored in his final moments when he responded to a 911 call for a wrong-way driver along Route 1 a minute after his shift ended.
Shift was over, and he could have very well went home, but he heard that there was an unsafe moment, and he wanted to step in.
Kevin represents the best of the best.
The best of the best, and that is exactly how Trainor will be remembered here at the barracks where he served. In Danvers, Jericho Tran, NBC 10 Boston.
Jericho, thank you. And be sure to stay with us here on NBC 10 for continuing coverage on this story. Make sure you visit our website, NBCBoston.com. We have a whole page up right now about Trooper Kevin Trainor, as well as reaction.
It begins with a long procession line, the body of Trooper Kevin Trainor arriving by hearse in Salem. From the air, his family and Mass State Troopers helped fill St. James Church, a time to remember the 30-year-old trooper who died in the line of duty.
You raised a hero. You raised a son who was drawn to service, a son who gave his life so others could live.
This is a service for a hero. Law enforcement from all 6 New England states and beyond. From bagpipes to a riderless horse to a flyover by the state police air wing. A U.S. flag given to both his mother and fiancé, symbolic trooper hats left for his siblings, and many here coming to watch it all, even if they never knew him.
Respect for the family, all the law enforcement that's out here. It's a pretty incredible sight. Kid was taken way too early.
Now, Trooper Trainor's burial was for family only, but it's important to note that Trooper Trainor's name will be made public again when it's added to the National Police Monument in the nation's capital next year. Live in Salem, I'm Ted Wayman, WCVB News 7.
Let it be said, when we finished this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager shore. When our time has come, we gave them hope. We made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah. We led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation. Let it be said. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For the next generation.
Okay, and we're back. You know what happened on this show? I actually started it without flubbing the whole start of the show.
I know. I didn't want to jinx it, so I stayed a little quiet.
It's only taken me 16 years.
We're getting there, slowly but surely.
Oh, well, we're back. I'm Annie, the hostess with the least mostest, along with my co-host Hannah Davis of fairus.org. I just want to remind listeners that each and every show we do dedicate to a fallen hero, be they a first responder, law enforcement, firefighter, emergency service, or the military from the birth of our nation through today, or just extraordinary citizens that step above and beyond in our nation's duty. So we thank each and every one. Most of them have already paid the ultimate sacrifice, and we thank them and their families. That said, we were talking about some of the stuff that's going on with FAIR, and you know what I forgot to do? Or did I? Oh, no, I did take it off the computer. I thought I forgot to take the stuff off the printer. But I found something that was interesting, something I do a show also with Dan Perkins, Moms Across America on Wednesdays, which he puts on his Dan Perkins Media. It also goes up on Your News. But we were talking about this, the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. And I'm looking at this amicus brief that FAIR had put out dealing with New Jersey trying to hobble ICE in their stuff, looking at the supreme law of the land. And as we started the show, we were also talking about the SAVE Act, asking for identification, just to vote. And when I read the 19th Amendment on Moms Across America, it's like, hello, America, this is the SAVE Act. It's in the Constitution. And for those who aren't aware of it, and all they have to do is add legislation attached to the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment is very, very simple. The right of citizens of the United States to vote. Notice they say citizens, not residents, not tourists, whatever. They state citizens to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state for account of sex. This is where the women got the right to vote. And ironically, 2 years before that, blacks had been written into the Constitution the right to vote. What they need is to amend the 19th, not even amend it, just put out legislation confirming to add in not just sex, but any citizen, no matter their whatever, what color they are of the day, it doesn't matter as long as they are a citizen, a lawful citizen. And Congress, this is where I said Congress can make the legislation, shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This folks say that.
Yeah, it is. It's clear as day, right? It really brings into question a lot of the local jurisdictions in Maryland and DC that allowed non-citizens to vote in non-federal elections. The 19th Amendment isn't specific about which elections. It just says only citizens can vote. And so it's being violated, on a yearly basis by multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah, because they mentioned in federal elections, not being by the federal or by the state government. So the states also adhere to the fact that it's only citizens that vote.
Yep.
And it's so simple. And, it doesn't need to take a baseball bat over your head to make it understood that anyone, as long as they are a legal citizen.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm so sick of hearing this argument from the left that, it's difficult for certain demographics or minorities to get IDs. I mean, you need an ID to rent. You need an ID to own anything. You need an ID to go to the movies. You need an ID to book a hotel or get a rental car. I mean, or just to get cigarettes or booze. I mean, it's so common how often we need IDs that I can't imagine not having one. And I have seen some pretty good arguments by minorities themselves saying that those who say that minorities cannot get IDs it's backwards racism. Like minorities get IDs just as easily as white people get IDs. And so it's no voters are going to be disenfranchised. If anything, the SAVE Act, people who aren't for it, they just want non-citizens to vote. They want people who shouldn't be getting IDs to vote, but so many states give IDs to non-citizens too. So it's like everybody can easily get an ID. And so I think that the SAVE Act is common sense legislation. Unfortunately, the president has to use it as leverage before he passes or signs off on other things. And that's probably wise. The SAVE Act needs to be passed. And I wonder how long he'll hold out and use it as leverage until it is.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out because it drives me nuts. It's also very demeaning to the minorities to say that they're too
exactly
in order to get an identification. And here in the state of South Carolina, when Nikki Haley was governor, and they turned around and said, well, they can't get the ID because they can't get to motor vehicles to get an official state ID. She turned around and goes, well, all you have to do is call this toll-free number up here to Columbia. We will provide transportation from your home or wherever you are at to the motor vehicles and bring you back home.
Mm-hmm.
And also, many millions will not be able to vote because they'll be disenfranchised. Do you know how many people actually used that transportation to get IDs and motor vehicles? 3,000.
Not a lot, but still something.
Statewide, 3,000.
Yeah.
And only because it was a free ride. It is very demeaning to anyone that is of a minority to say you think we're too stupid or incapable. And
it is demeaning.
I forget who it was that said, well, when women get married, then it makes everything very confusing. I'm sorry. No, I've been married now 3 times. I haven't had a problem once with ID.
No, you just have to keep your records in order, show that you changed your name and show that it went back to your maiden name and repeat, and rinse and repeat, just keep your documentation. It's easy to get an ID. And I've seen a lot of minorities say that it is demeaning, for lack of a better term, when people use the argument that they can't go get IDs. They're just as capable as any other, individual. And so it's such an old argument too, such an old defense. And it's at the end of the day, I would respect people who are against the SAVE Act more if they just admitted why they don't want it passed. If they just admitted that they want non-citizens to be able to vote. Just admit it.
Well, we're talking about the Supreme Court. And actually I put this article up on Big League Politics. I think you have an article also on it about the court ruled that lower federal courts have limited authority to second guess the Trump administration's decision to revoke the TPS, which you were sent me a message about this last night, the temporary protected status. What's all that about?
Yeah, so previously in the year, the Trump administration went after Syrian and Haitian TPS. They also went after Somalian. And so what the courts have decided is that lower courts cannot just block or challenge the revocation of these people's legal status. If the president says, hey, I want to put an end to this specific group of individuals, TPS, their status, then he does. The lower courts just can't intervene and say, no, let's put a pause on that. They don't have the discretion to do so anymore. And so what that means for the Haitians and Syrians is that their TPS status is ending. And so they're going to have to either change status, get a new different type of visa, or they're going to have to be deported. But temporary protected status, it's in the name, temporary. It's for people who are fleeing natural disasters or civil war. Those things that those people came over here for are remedied by now, or not nearly as bad as they were that justified them coming over here. But they've still been here for decades and decades. And so it's kind of the opposite of what TPS was designed for. And right now, a lot of people are questioning how it's going to affect the Somalian TPS, because people want, especially after all the fraud we saw in Minnesota, it's a hot topic. They want the Somalians deported, or they want them held accountable in some way, right? And the majority of Somalians that are in the United States are here legally through TPS. And so what the lower courts had done is they basically put a pause. They halted the president's decision on Somalian TPS, but now taking into consideration what the Supreme Court has recently said, I think anybody who is defending the president or the current administration in court will point to the Supreme Court's recent decision and say, hey, their lawsuit needs to be dismissed, thrown out, because Somalians have to go as well, according to the Supreme Court. The president has say over who he wants to deport, what statuses he wants to put a pause on. And so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because like I said, this affected Haitians and Syrians, but it's going to affect Somalians as well. And it's a good thing for the people. TPS, it's supposed to be temporary. So let's stop milking it,
Well, here, this ties into something else that is up on fairus.org. You're underneath your news brief. This was done 3 days ago about the Supreme Court reversing a ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals from the Second Circuit that weakened provisions in the immigration law are meant to protect the nation from criminal aliens. So here we got the Somalians with the fraud and everything else. So if these individuals are here on a TPS or here legally and are convicted of a crime, and they have certain crimes that fall into that category, once we deport them, we don't have to let them in. If they go out to visit relatives and come back, we don't have to let them back in.
No, yeah, not according to statute. No, that's the way the laws are written right now. So, we've had a few wins from the Supreme Court, with regarding TPS, affecting Haitians and Syrians, and eventually Somalians, because that's a current court, a legal battle going on, and the Supreme Court's decision is definitely going to affect the Somalian TPS. And then we've got the asylum, the new ruling on asylum from the Supreme Court, that if you've encountered the border or encountered a Border Patrol agent, you haven't entered the United States yet. So therefore, you are not able to apply for asylum. It used to be, according to the Ninth Circuit, they were like, hey, if you've encountered the border at a port of entry, or if you encountered a Border Patrol agent, you have the right to apply for asylum. That's wackadoo. You haven't entered. How can you apply? And so the Supreme Court, they sided with FAIR. We had previously pushed through a brief stating why the Ninth Circuit's decision was wrong, and why the Supreme Court needed to review this. And Justice Thomas agreed. Mainly, Justice Thomas agreed with FAIR's brief that not only is it obvious that if you haven't entered the United States, you can't apply for asylum, but that the Ninth Circuit, their decision saying that if you've encountered a Border Patrol agent or the border, kind of conflicts with the president's powers. If the president says, hey, I want to suspend the entry of a specific type of class of aliens, he gets to do so. And as things were written previously, he wouldn't be able to do so regarding asylum law. And so now he has carte blanche to do what he wants as the rules are written. And so this is good for national security. If say President Trump deemed that we had a group of people at the border that should not be able to apply for asylum because they affect the national security of the homeland, the previous asylum rules would have conflicted with that, and he would have had to have let them in. And so now he has more power, and we're not just, granting people who, it's like saying, do you see how silly it is? It's actually quite sad that it had to go up to the Supreme Court, because if you haven't entered the U.S., you haven't entered the U.S. Just because you're at the U.S. or at Walmart doesn't mean you entered Walmart. Therefore, you don't get to apply for asylum.
Well, I want to welcome back to the show. We haven't had him on for quite a few years, and my fault. The one, the only, Frank Salvato, the host and producer of the Underground USA podcast, as well as a man extraordinaire in his own right. Fellow
There you have
paisano,
it.
I have to give you a good intro.
Yeah, I was gonna. That's a lot of smoke coming my way.
Hey, you know how we Italians are, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know it. Man, we were talking about some of these Supreme Court rulings, and I had my co-host here. She's the investigation manager for immigration at FAIR-US.org, which is the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And she's a pistol in her own right.
I was hearing a little bit of it. I agree with everything that she said, and it can't be repeated often enough because the people who need to hear it, they need to hear things at least 7, 8 times before it starts to sink into them, and then they go, "Wow, that kind of makes sense a little bit." So we have to keep bringing these topics to the forefront so that people have the opportunity to hear them and consume them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as a fellow New Yorker, I was watching what was going on with their primaries over there. But I am now here in South Carolina, and I'm glad to say our primaries came out pretty damn good here. But I actually wrote down on my notes the communist state of New York.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recognize it. And when I'm hearing that areas of Long Island that used to be really red are now not even purplish anymore. I think Nassau County finally got another Republican superintendent, whatever you call it, I forget what it was, there. But the state is, to my mind, is just about basically lost because the city of New York and men dominant.
Well, I have to agree with that too. That's we've seen a very poor turn of events. We do have to keep in mind, though, that these primaries that happened in New York were the turnout was very poor. Even for the Democratic primaries, only 17% of the people showed up, which means when you equate that to total population of voting public up there in New York, it's 7%. So you've got this very aggressive minority doing their due diligence to get their candidates in winning position, whether they're lying to the public, misrepresenting themselves to the public, targeting people who are vulnerable to their message, which turns out to be a lot of the more liberal-facing university students in New York City. That's who they rally to turn out with the promise of socialism and what a utopian version of that would be. It never turns out that way. It didn't turn out that way during any time in history, but they still try to shop that canard that if it was only done right, and we can do it right, then everyone will benefit. That said, Mondami's New York is a bellwether for places like Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco and Houston, major metropolitan areas where they glow cobalt blue. And it speaks to the vulnerability of the mindset of the people who they target. I getting a little bit wider on the topic. I blame that on our education system because we don't teach critical thinking skills anymore. No. We don't teach accurate history. We don't teach critical thinking skills. So when someone like a Mondami can come up and promise you everything and free buses and free government grocery stores and rent control and everything that he's spewed out to achieve his victory, they don't think it through to, well, who pays for all this stuff?
Exactly.
And then when we watch Mondami attack the millionaires and billionaires as he's trying to do, and the corporations saying they need to pay for all this because, well, darn it, we deserve it. Those people leave and they go to places like Florida and Texas where they're treated better. And you see the economies in Florida and Texas exploding, where New York is, as we used to say in the fire service, circling the drain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Looking at these people that he got through the primary and the absolute insult to Hakeem Jeffries. And I'm listening to Hakeem Jeffries blame it on the Republicans instead of saying, hey, listen, you just went limp wrist on me and you didn't really do a good job in pushing your own candidate and toning down Mondami and his rhetoric. That's not the Democratic Party, according to Team Jeffries, but yet Team Jeffries helped usher it in, especially with the squad, AOC, Gilad Rashid, or the other one, the Somali.
Rashad Tlaib, yeah. And AIC's getting attacked now by the people in the Democratic Socialist circles. They're saying she's not radical enough. So the old adage about the radical left and the Marxist left eating their own once they succeed, it bears fruit once again. You know,
the goalpost is always moving for them. You know, it used to be in the 90s. They wanted what? Free universal health care, and now they think men can be pregnant. It's like when does it end? So it's
that's a tough childbirth for a guy.
I bet.
You know. You can feel the pain from here. But yeah, you're right. They do move the goalposts, and Democrats taught them how to do that. We saw that through history, starting with going back to Johnson, maybe. But definitely during the Clinton years and absolutely during the Obama years and the Biden years. Biden years didn't even have goalposts on the playing field. They just made it round instead of rectangle and decided that if you go to where they want you to go, you scored a touchdown. It didn't make any sense.
Yep.
So yeah, the redefining of terms, conditions, and approaches by the Marxist left in the United States is part and parcel of what they do. You know, just look at going back to the genesis of Planned Parenthood. They changed the name of that organization like 13 times until they found something that was palatable to the public. So the public will go, well, what's wrong with Planned Parenthood? It seems responsible to me. but that's not what it is. It's a eugenic society that commits genocide, if you ask me. So the changing of definitions and even words, you know, they do it all the time, and sometimes in real time. If you watch their conventions, which I consider punishment, you can see them redefining words in real time, which is just stunning. I mean, it's impressive, but it's stunningly disturbing.
And they've taken some policies that I think everybody agreed upon, say even just early 2000s, and then they've used them to their advantage, like immigration. You know, it used to not be such a polarizing or political topic, and now it's like, how dare we have borders? It used to be, hey, let's go back and forth about what visas should have what different caps, you know, and now it's, if you believe in borders, you're a horrible person. Sanctuary jurisdictions are on the rise. You know, we don't need enforcement. ICE is the devil. Where did this come from? You know, and it's wild how it's metastasized almost.
Well, and it validates your statement about moving the goalposts. Mm-hmm. You know, when you talk to people who immigrated to the United States, you know this full well. When you talk to people who immigrated to the United States legally, and who chose to assimilate because they wanted to be here and wanted to be American, rather than dragging their cultures with them to reestablish them in a new country, which, as an aside, is exactly what Islamists are doing in the United States today. They're angry about what's happening at the border. They don't support illegal immigration. Polls show that they overwhelmingly detest it. They believe in the assimilation. And assimilation, and I like to explain this to people too, it doesn't mean that you turn your back on your culture.
Right.
You know, you celebrate your culture. I'm happy that you do, but celebrate it removing the hyphen. And that's another thing that liberals and Marxists and Democrats, especially liberal Democrats, have done over time. They insert these hyphens in our identity. The Italian American, the Hispanic American, the Latino American. They changed that verbiage at will. You know, Black Americans. It's all meant to balkanize us. It's all meant to establish these little tribes that they can pit against each other, looking forward to elections. So if I have the Italian ancestry tribe angry with the Irish ancestry tribe, I can pander with my verbiage in order to court the votes. They've done this with race. They've done it with gender. They've done it with ethnicity. It really is kind of despicable, beyond Machiavellian. So it's something we also have to realize too, is if we can get rid of that hyphen and we realize that we're all American of Italian descent. I'm Italian, Norwegian, and German descent. I'm proud of it. I don't walk around saying I'm all of that and then American, because if I go to those countries and I talk to someone over there, they're going to say, "So where are you from?" I say, "Oh, well, I'm an Italian American." They go, "Nope,
No, you're an American.
You're an American. That's how we recognize you, because that's where you're from." So we have to, getting on year 250, it would be really, really nice if people started saying, I'm an American first above everything else. And, oh, by the way, I have a heritage I can be proud of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you say the unhyphenated, you remind me of a friend of mine that passed away a few years back. The name may sound familiar to you, Lloyd Marcus. As a matter of fact, he did the song, The Unhyphenated American. I got to dig that up. But, just when I heard him doing that, it was staged that my husband built. He was dancing on it as he sang the song. And it put all those memories back. He's such a brilliant man. And he had it right. We are an unhyphenated American first and foremost. You and I grew up in an age where we were told America is a melting pot. You assimilate in society, you can be proud of your heritage. We have Little Italy, we've got Chinatown. It doesn't mean that you disassociate yourself from what your heritage is, what your traditions are, but you're an American first and foremost.
Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. We've got these politicians that are touting off the idea that being an American is bad. Who's the lady running up there in New York City or New York somewhere? And she said she posted yesterday or the day before on Twitter that she couldn't find a napkin, and so she used the American flag behind her. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Was that Claire Valdez or the other one, Chevalier?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but it's a bad word. It's a dirty word to say you're a patriot or you're an American, and it's just, come on.
But we got the games in California and everything, and they're going, America's so great. We were told how bad you are. They're walking into Walmart, and it's like they're walking into a toy store, a candy store. We got something on the show. They don't have this. We're told everything is so bad over here. Now we have our own politicians telling us how bad we are. You tell enough lies long enough and hard enough, people are going to believe it. Mm-hmm. And that's why we need a ballot box revolution. As I told my county council the other day, I said, it's going to be a ballot box revolution this November. We're already seeing Republicans are out fundraising Democrats in this election cycle.
Yeah, and that's a positive thing. I don't necessarily trust the Republican national apparatus to message correctly when it comes to campaigning. They fail that on that consistent.
Yeah.
They don't know how to message very well or take the message directly to the people. That's what made Ronald Reagan a little bit unique, and it's definitely what made Donald Trump unique, is they bypassed the apparatus and went straight to the people to make their cases, which we have to do all the time, to count on the politicians and the political organizations to do that with any kind of aplomb. Boy, I'd rather put everything on black in Vegas. So it's up to everybody who's concerned about our republic and the continuation of our constitutional government, to have those talks. I mean, we were told, at least through the 80s and maybe at the end of the 70s, probably getting back into the 60s, that it's very impolite to talk politics with people. You shouldn't do that unless you're very close to this. I disagree with that completely. We have to talk politics with people. Doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it, but you have to talk politics with people, because when we have conversations about what we believe and how our country is supposed to be and the history of our country, we find out, shock of shocks, unless you're talking to someone like Bandami, that we have more in common than we have in difference. And all of a sudden, all of this manufactured divide that the political class shoves upon us, so that they can divide us to create those factions to pander to for votes, it doesn't exist. And that we do, as both of you said, proud to be an American. When you look at the American history around the world, we've done more for freedom and helping people than any other country in the history of man. And it says right in our Constitution, and it's very blatant. And I'm glad to see that this statement is being scrutinized and examined today. We're always in search of a more perfect union. Founders didn't give us a perfect union. They knew that we weren't going to be perfect because we're human. Humans are not perfect. They can't be. So they gave us a mandate, generation after generation, to strive to be more perfect. That's how we got rid of the scourge of slavery. That's how we emancipated the women to vote. That's how we achieved all these things, by questing to be more perfect with each generation, to try to attain that perfection that will forever be out of our reach. So again, as we're looking at 250 and the Declaration of Independence, it's important to understand what we were bequeathed, even if our education institutions aren't teaching it. And that's where that talking about politics comes into. When you get into these discussions, you raise things that perhaps even learned people have never heard before. Because if you were born after 2000, you're about 25 now, 26. Mm-hmm. You never would have heard any of this stuff because they don't teach it in schools. So it's up to us.
Yeah, and it's up to the parents.
It is.
Yeah. Parents need to take control of their children's education, whether or not they homeschool or not. They have a say and they have more power than they think.
Oh, absolutely. And even if they go to public school, when you sit down as a family, put the phones down. Get off the tablets. Have a discussion about what you learned in school today, little Johnny or Janie. What did you learn? What did they tell you? And when you hear things that are wrong, that aren't factually correct, or that insult the sensibilities of people with common sense who use critical thinking to see the world, then you take it upon yourself to explain that to the child in a way the child can consume it. Because you know best how they're going to consume information. You're their parent. You're the closest one to them. Talk to them like a parent. Parent them. and push back against the teachers who push garbage.
Yeah, don't be afraid to tell the kid that the teacher or the principal is wrong.
Absolutely.
What I'm finding also is that people are afraid to get involved with other individuals. Their own little sector of family, little not unit. They don't reach out anymore. Like you said, they've got their smart device in front of them and they're flipping away and no one's paying attention. They're having a conversation. You're in a restaurant. Be amazed how little conversation goes now in the restaurant. But you start the conversation, start learning. Like when I have a new neighbor, I'll knock on the door and introduce myself to them. You need anything, want to know anything about the area, just feel free to knock on my door. And some people turn around and go, okay, and then they'll see them again. Others will come over and say, yeah, where do you go and who do you talk to? You have a conversation with your neighbors. And if politics slips in, don't start a fight. Just say, all right, we can agree to disagree and walk away on that. I find, because I do a show now going on 16 years already, people say, oh, you do a podcast. I always was a little hesitant to say, well, it's conservative Christian. I'm not afraid. It's like it's conservative Christian. And we find so many people are interested. We've got another generation coming out now, and they're more conservative than the generations before them. We're finding men turn to religion, Christianity, and young men more than anything else. We think women, but now you got the white liberal women. I don't know where the new baby's going to be coming from. Oh God, it scares me.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And now you have the White House, like Vice President Vance's wife, Usha. She's pregnant, and there's a couple of people in D.C. that are prominent women that are pregnant. It's oh my God, they're walking and look at that dress she's wearing, her belly shows. You should be proud of that belly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
People are cruel.
Absolutely.
People have no couth. I mean, people are just they make fun of people just to make fun of them, make themselves feel better.
Well, over the years, with the way that and again, I go back to the education system because they touch everybody, whether it's private or public. We've allowed them to instill a false level of self-esteem in people to where you don't learn from your mistakes. You don't learn from being wrong. You learn how to defend that you're always right. And that doesn't work. It's antithetical to listening and learning, and it cheats you out of being able to learn the lessons from failure or from being wrong or from just listening to someone else's point of view. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. But when you listen to someone else's point of view, especially on politics or even religion, you're ingesting information and you're allowing them to feel like they're being heard. And that builds bridges, whether you end up agreeing with them or not. It builds bridges, and it gets rid of that politically manufactured divide amongst us, bringing us back to what we were. We were talking about our society being cohesive. E pluribus unum is our motto for a reason. Melting pot is an offshoot of that idea. America, when people came here, they came to be anew. And that's why out of many one, we created something brand new, something that's never happened before on the face of the planet, a land of freedom and self-governance, where people have a voice in how they do this. And the experiment has succeeded for 250 years. So we need to re-embrace that e pluribus unum, get rid of the hyphen, and start dismantling the tribes that the Marxist left has tried to fence us into. That would be a great gift for the nation on 250.
I agree with you both, especially Frank, when you said, it's okay to disagree with your friends. You're right. I have friends that I agree with everything politically, and they agree with everything politically, back and forth. And then I have friends that I feel like the friendship is actually more meaningful because we don't agree politically, but we still like one another enough that we're going to remain friends. And so it's a win-win either way. It's great to have people who agree with you so you can vent about policy and not feel like you're talking someone's ear off or stepping on someone's toes. But it's also really great to have friendships with people who do not see eye to eye politically with you, because it means they actually genuinely like you. And so people need to try and have friends that have differences of opinion.
And they value your opinion, whether they agree with it or not. They value it enough to hear you, and that's what we don't do a lot today, especially because we've got the smartphones and the tablets and everything else. We're not hearing the people who are sitting right next to us. We're not hearing that we have things in common with them. We're not hearing their concerns. We're not considering their concerns. That's all part of being able to be a critical thinker. If you're not intaking that information and considering what they have to say, even if you know from the beginning you're not going to go along with that line of thought, but if you consider it, it gives you a different viewpoint sometimes and allows you to think more clearly on it, perhaps even finding solutions to a problem that were never considered before. So this we've got to shut everybody up that doesn't agree with us. That's a very big poison in the American society today. We have to learn to listen more.
Or the amount of people my age that are cutting off their parents because of political things is just insane. You're going to remove a grandparent from your child's life because you guys don't have the same view on immigration? Make that make sense.
Have the conversation. What a teachable moment that would be, to sit down with not only the kids, but the grandparents. You state your case. Talk about it. Why do you feel so strongly about this? Why do you feel so strongly against this? What are the pros and cons? How does it affect people? Find out what the common ground is, marry yourselves to that, and then work on everything else, because those are ongoing conversations that can help educate future generations when they see civility between their parents and their parents' parents, where they're working things out, talking and trying to figure it out and trying to understand one another. That's a teachable moment.
It is. And everyone has someone from the opposite political side in their family. So when praise just say, hi, love you, and then have a nice life.
just head towards Thanksgiving. You'll find them.
Yeah, I think that's more common with Northerners, because Southerners, we tend to be, Southern families tend to be pretty conservative. So Northerners, you might get a little bit more of a mixed bag, but I got a couple aunts that are a little out there. So we just don't talk about it. We should be able to, though. That's the point, right? We should be able to.
God bless them. I'd say a diverse viewpoint makes for an interesting conversation if you contain your emotions to the point where you don't become angry, frustrated, or disparaging. If you have a respectful conversation and enjoy the person that you're talking to, careful, you might just learn something.
No, it's funny because I also tell people all politics start at home. It's all local. And if you're talking about your dog catcher, your school board, your counselor, or whatever you call it, the parish council, whatever, it starts at home because what you do here is what everyone else is doing across the rest of the nation. So even though I haven't had children, I'll show up to school board meetings. And what these kids do, what they learn affects my neighborhood when they graduate, whether or not they can get that job, whether or not they can attract businesses to come in and other residents and whatever to make your community stronger and better. You can't, I'll call it a product. If you cannot produce a product out of the schools that is something worth keeping and hanging on to, you'll have a lost society. And this is what we're missing. We're allowing brainwashing, the DEI and everything else to take place of actual, as you say, critical thinking. The ABCs, reading, writing, arithmetic, learning the founding documents that brought us to this nation. And I've shown up at a school board meeting and I'm listening to what's going on back and forth. And I actually stood up and the school superintendent was sitting there too. And I apologized to him. I said, sir, I'm sorry, we elected these people. We will correct that problem in the near future. And we did. We turned over our school board. Because we hired you to handle this district, the school district, and we're giving you a poor product to work with, and that's the school board.
And that's what happens when you're involved in your communities. You have to be. We're all responsible for oversight. That's the one thing that the framers and the founders believed we would be good at, was providing oversight to the people who we elected to represent us. And you're absolutely right. Can't state it any more clearly. All politics begins at home. All politics is local. Politics trickles up where the economy sometimes trickles down. Politics always trickles up. Yeah, sometimes. Politics always trickles up because everybody who is politically minded or wants to be in government because they believe it's their calling, they need to move up the food chain. So politics trickles up. If they don't learn their lessons at the local level, their mistakes follow them into the next level of government, whether it be county, state, or federal. So we can't be afraid to talk and interact with the people on our local governmental levels, whether it's school board, whether it's village board, town board, doesn't matter. When you don't do that, that's when you see places like Chicago and New York and LA and San Francisco and Houston. So it's a responsibility. The framers vested this on us. Franklin said it best coming out of the Constitution. You got a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
But the chief word there is if you can keep it.
Correct.
Not if we can maintain it, whether you can keep it or not. And that's up to you. It's up to each and every one of us.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is that when we have a year like this and we see what's happening in the politics, we, the individuals, are going to be going to the polls to vote. And I call this a ballot box revolution. We can turn over our government easily if we get up, actually vote. And I did this council just recently. They got 8 seats that are changing, and so this is a ballot box revolution. You just have the primary. Wait until the actual election day. We will turn you over. We have to.
And then that's all predicated on voter turnout. And as we see in New York, the smallest of factions, if they're organized well enough, can wreak havoc on an entire society. So people who are conservative, independent, conservative leaning, even people in the Democrat Party who lean conservative and don't agree with what's happening with the Democrat Socialists of America takeover of the Democrat Party, you have to turn out for these elections. It's a must. There is no, maybe next time, or it's just a primary. Every election matters, and those numbers must increase election after election. And like I said before, quite frankly, I don't see the Republican national apparatus actually messaging well enough to to invigorate the voting base. It's going to be up to each and every one of us to make sure that everyone we know who believes in securing the blessings of our republic, that we maintain that by showing up at the ballot box. So I agree with your ballot box revolution idea. It's very good. I think that's what Trump did.
Well, I say that July 4th, my mom turns 94. We were talking about that earlier. She's seen about over 1/3 of the history of this nation she's lived in, and she went and voted.
Yeah.
She said, give me the ballot. She goes, explain who each person is on this, and she makes her own decision. She went up there and she's pushing the buttons on there, and she says, okay, she voted, and she's every single election since she moved in with me, she's voted. And I want to welcome an old friend of mine that I met, oh God, I'm thinking now about 15, 16 years ago in an elevator of all places, Chad, former chair of the South Carolina GOP. I've got one question for you before Chad. Are you going to be in Columbia tomorrow?
I will be. Yes, I'll be there. I got a flight. I fly out of Charlotte to speak in Orlando on Sunday, so I got to scurry out. But hopefully I'll get a little taste of barbecue too. Y'all doing all right?
You got to make sure you give me a hug.
Yes.
As long as it's North Carolina Eastern barbecue.
No, you got to do the mustard barbecue.
It's better than the tomato based. I'll give you that. Mustard's pretty good.
Oh man, Frank Salvato, he has his own podcast, The Underground USA. I think are you two friends? I think, aren't you?
We know each other. I know him. He may not know me, but I know him.
Well, I appreciate being known. Believe me, sometimes you just feel like you're speaking into the fan, but occasionally you find out that you're not. So I appreciate it very much.
Amen and amen.
Oh man, I mean, I've gotten so far off topic, but Chad, one of the things I sent you a note, like I was having fun with the primary turnout, and I was pretty glad to see what we had. Strong candidates came out on the other end. There was one person I wanted to see over another, but either one would have done a great job. But we now have the son of Congressman Joe Wilson, who was our Attorney General. Now looks like he will be our future governor. We haven't had a Democrat in here since I think it was 2001 or 2002.
Jim Hodges got beaten in 2002 by Mark Sanford. So 24 years.
So I think if South Carolina is any indication of the rest of the nation, I think we're going to have a big turnout this election season.
Well, look, I've been in 11 states so far. I'll have pastors engaged in 17. I just hung up with part of my team talking about that. And what we did here in South Carolina, we're going to try to duplicate in all those key congressional districts and certainly the top 7 or 8 Senate races. The left is animated. Look at Mom Dami. See also New York City this week. Frank was just mentioning, they're animated too. And it's all, we hate Trump so bad, we'll have a sign for algae, the Iranian dictator, the Venezuelan dictator, the Cuban dictator, but no kings and algae, team algae. So they're nuts. I said this, I did Newsmax. I did Newsmax last night with a lefty, and I'm like, you guys, what you're going to have a new Palestinian flag? Now you got an algae flag? Give me a break.
Okay, the reflecting upon this morning, I'm going to this woman, and she's not even American born. I go, all right, so you thought this country was so bad that you left yours to live here. It doesn't make sense. Frank, go ahead. I keep on cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I think it's when we talk about assimilation with people bringing their cultures here and saying, I just want to reestablish my culture here instead of embracing Americanism and what E pluribus unum is supposed to deliver to us. It creates those factions, and then they make their algae flags and things like that. And it's a perfect characterization of how fragmented the animated, and to borrow a word, the animated activist is today. They're willing to put pond scum ahead of securing our elections. How is that a topic that trumps securing our elections? It's there's algae in the pond. We need a flag. Let's sit down and devote our time to that. That's very constructive.
I don't know if y'all saw the New York Post did an article about Usha Vance and her maternity dress
Oh,
she
talk
got
about
at Old Navy. That was actually one of my questions last night on Newsmax. So there was a lefty. They always put me with some lefty, right? And that was one of the questions. Is the New York Post did an article about, and the left went nuts that she only spent $8.75 on a maternity dress at Old Navy. And I'm thinking, when we do our family Connelly cookout, my sister, my wife, my sister-in-law, the girls, the younger girls, they're talking about how much they saved and how Americana is that to think I got this $50 dress for $8. That's fantastic. So the left is out of touch, y'all. But they are animated and they do hate Trump, and we're not good at midterms and we're not good when Trump's on the ballot. So we got a problem.
You've got that, you were talking about shopping for the bargain. That's an endorsement of our capitalist system's way of life.
Yes.
If there's choices to make where you can get something that you enjoy, that you want to wear for $8 as opposed to $780, that's uncomfortable and looks ridiculous, that's competition at its best. So why that would be a topic to be contentious with, I'm kind of befuddled about.
And the left likes to tout off that they're ultra feminist and that they're women's women, but they're so quick to bring down a woman that has a different political view than them, tearing her down for what?
It's her dress isn't a political statement; it's a maternity statement. So it was a personal attack, but that's how they do their politics. It's all personal attack, and if sex can be involved, it's absolutely going to be involved because they like to exploit that topic. So.
Well,
these people are experts at distraction. They're experts at distraction. And instead of talking about the lady with a hijab that hates America and wants to eradicate the foundations of America and get rid of Israel, they'd rather talk about an $8.50 maternity dress and make fun of that, because those are real issues. Getting a socialist, communist, Islamist, somebody that supports Hamas terrorism for a potential congresswoman is far bigger than a maternity dress, but that's the discussion they'd rather have.
No,
it sells, and it's sad that it does sell to a particular information clientele in the United States, and that's a topic that needs to be discussed more seriously, and people run away from it. We have an antithetical culture that is invading, and I'm going to use that word. A lot of people go, "Oh, you can't say that. They're immigrants." Well, not really. If you're not assimilating and you're not wanting to be an American by being here, and you're just dragging your culture in here, you're establishing an outpost. And we're seeing that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a parallel society.
Yeah, and it's very
I've
dangerous.
watched the screen flicker on front of me. I'm hoping everyone's all right.
I think it's you, Annie.
Aliens. You say aliens. No.
Yeah, we're going to have a serious conversation about the culture clash that's happening between the Islamic world and the free world, because they're oil and water. We can't have, as you said, the parallel societies. We can't have the parallel legal systems. We can't have the parallel governmental systems, especially when the Islamic culture's system absolutely transgresses everything that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution stands for. And we're seeing it in places like Texas and Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia. So it's not something that's just isolated to Dearborn, Michigan, the way the media would like you to understand it. It's a serious issue, and it's happening nationwide.
What scares me is that we've got the 25th anniversary of 9/11 coming up. And as I'm watching what's going on in Manhattan and New York City, there's whole crowds of Muslim men in the middle of the street chanting anti-American stuff. And even watching Mandami saying, "God bless Allah," bless Allah. And you're hearing them teaching them to teach the kids in school to say the Shahada. And now finally, Mandami's in office now going on 2 years, 700 rabbis finally have the courage to stand up and challenge him. I mean, where have you been this whole long time? I remember talking to a rabbi in the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn, I turned around and I said, why are you supporting Chuck Schumer? He stands against everything that you believe in. He's not pro-Israel. You said it before. And I mean, as a Christian Catholic at the time, I support Israel. I went to Anglican, but I still support Israel. You know, Christianity and Israel are united so deeply in not just the Bible, but in our beliefs and in attitudes. I don't understand that. Why we're turning around and saying everything that this one woman that won the nomination, I think it was the Chavez, or whatever her name was saying everything that was bad about America is exactly everything that Islam teaches you. The Sharia law, the Quran, everything is just what they're claiming that we're bad about. I don't understand the hypocrisy. Or maybe it's the vote and the money and the power. Chad?
You know, I really think it's such a huge issue. I think our electorate is dumb. They've been dumbed down in American history. Y'all know I travel with David Barton. If you don't know David Barton and Wall Builders, and he spent his career gathering documents proving God's role in American history. He's owns over 160,000. He's partnered with Glenn Beck, who has his own museum, 120,000 of the documents before 1812. And he talks about we're not only as a nation have become biblically illiterate, but we're historically illiterate. And that's why these kids go to colleges and get duped by a professor that can't go compete in the free market. They can't win over people. You know, it's like when you're trying to build something, you ought to be able to expand it. These people aren't able to expand it except by force. If you don't agree with them, they're against you, and you're an infidel if you're on the Muslim side, and they got to kill you. But the left is no better. This cancel culture thing, one of the questions on Newsmax last night was about that comedian Nate who went to the UFC fight at the White House and got called a fascist. A fascist? You don't even know what you're talking about, buddy. What do you mean, a fascist? A fascist doesn't allow you to talk what you're talking. You wouldn't be out having these protests and riots and having these peaceful protests where you turn over and burn cars and buses and crap like that. And the DEI person from Goldman Sachs looting a trash can after the Knicks win. You know, you go on and on and on. It's like Frank said, these are not people who will ever assimilate. They don't want to assimilate. They hate us because they hate the very idea of freedom and accountability. They hate our God. They hate our country. And look, if they think it's so bad here, and I'm for all these Democrats, I told my Sunday school class this Sunday, if 55% of the Democrats under 35 think America is not the best place to live, please leave. There are these things called airplanes. I'm going to hop on one tomorrow. They'll take you anywhere you want to go. But that's how dumbed down we are. So that's the first layer, is the electorate that puts these people in office they're stupid. I don't know how else to put it. The second thing is what we were talking about a minute. Y'all were talking about when I got on, and that's turnout. That's on us. And that's what we work on with pastors, is just maximize your turnout, make sure people go vote biblical values. That would fix a lot of this, because we still have the numerical value to go win, but they're pushing hard, y'all.
No, absolutely. You say, you can't mix religion and politics. I'm sorry, we would not have had a revolution unless we had the Black Robe Regiment. And when I was looking on your website, Chad, which is faithwins.org, I'm saying you are rallying up the Black Robe Regiment once again. You've got to preach the pulpit what true Christianity is, what the true faith is, even Judaism, how it marries into our conservative and the building of this nation.
Yeah. Well, Judeo-Christian values came from somewhere. They came from the law of Moses. One of my David Barton's latest lines, God gave us 10 rules to follow, 10 guidelines, 10 commandments. And do you know, if you started reading the U.S. Code of Laws right now, and y'all are good readers, and if you limited yourself to only 700 pages a week, and I know y'all want to read more than that, but if you read 700 pages a week of the U.S. Code of Laws back to our founding, it would take you 25,000 years to read the U.S. Code of Laws. So God's laws work from the inside out. I used to make a joke when I go through TSA, and they don't have any humor, but I'd say, I decided years ago not to bomb this plane. But you know, when it's an internal drive to do right and seek righteousness in God's direction, as opposed to an external, I'm going to do wrong, the laws try to control us from the outside in. Jesus controls from the inside out. There's a huge difference.
And that's and that brings up this this, because you touched on it earlier. What we're seeing happen, and especially in the urban areas here in the United States, is this red-green alliance.
Yes.
This far left alliance with the Islamic usurpers. I'm going to use a gentler word. They don't understand. The Marxist left doesn't understand that even though they do play the long game, that the Islamist culture plays an even longer game.
That's right.
And they're instructed through the Quranic verse to envelop the globe in a caliphate that sees Islam as the dominant culture and the only religion, and everybody else is subjugated, and that's that. So the Marxist left that's aligning with them for political purposes today doesn't understand that if the Islamists should ever achieve their goal, they're the first ones to go.
Yeah.
They're not going to tolerate them. They will be lined up and they will be executed. And if you want to see a microcosm example of that, just rewind to 1979 and look what happened in Tehran.
100%.
The people who helped the mullahs come to power were rounded up and executed. They were tolerated and included. They weren't celebrated. They were seen as useful idiots, and then they proved themselves to be. So that's when we have this conversation about assimilation and God's divine providence in how our nation came to be and where we're supposed to go. We have to understand that there's a force out there that's rooted in evil and rooted in dishonesty and deception, that is always around the corner waiting for us to slip up a little bit. And that's why we actually have to have the courage to stand up and say what's right, do what's right, and have the courage to speak. We talked about this. Afraid to have political conversations with the people that you know. Just be respectful about it.
Yeah. Y'all, I was in the hardware store this morning. I'm in South Carolina this week, and I'm at home, and took my lawnmower down for them to service it. And this guy was railing when I dropped it off, and I just couldn't stand it. He was like, preachers don't preach the truth. And I saw this preacher on TV. And of course, I'm around preachers every day, every week. I've got pastor network, and partially he's right. And that's what bothers me. But I said, where to go to church? Well, I don't go to church. And I'm like, well, kind of a problem. God's authority says we got to be under somebody's authority. And he said, I said, you ought to go try out my church. It's First Baptist in Newberry. And I got a Bible preaching preacher. And he said, no, Bible preachers aren't preaching the truth. And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, some of them aren't, but I know a lot who are. And he said, I saw this Baptist preacher. I said, oh, one guy. And I just wasn't going to let it stand. And I said, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm with pastors who are in the fight. Yes, not a lot, not enough are, but there are plenty of pastors, God's leaders, who are out there telling the truth about the biblical connections to the issues of the day. And I'm telling you, I believe that is the Black Robe Regiment of the day, is people willing to stand up and tell the truth, whether it's uncomfortable or not, because we don't like discomfort, right? Everybody wants to be convenienced and wants to have their head patted and all that good stuff. But the truth is that truth is under attack. And I could tell Ann that her room is 40 feet wide and she can say it's 35. Those are only opinions. Until we pull out a tape measure, then we got the truth. And truth is under attack. And the reason error hates truth is it always exposes it. Truth always exposes error. And when our founders said we hold these truths to be self-evident, that's what the left can't handle, is they don't want any truth except their own. We're in a fight. I think the midterms are such a big deal. Thank God I live in South Carolina, but I'm in all these states. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of God's people who are in the fight out there, and we're doing our best to support them.
Hey, Chad, I want to ask you kind of, maybe it might be a difficult question, but what do you think about those pastors that use the Bible to defend this open borders policy we see?
They've capitulated on Bible truth. Throughout the Bible, the borders, national sovereignty is reinforced. God doesn't say get rid of borders. In fact, he talks about borders. Very specifically, God talks about borders. And when the Bible talks about take care of the immigrant, it doesn't mean let them come in, rape your children, kill your little girls, and take over your society. To the contrary, throughout the Bible, God reinforced and talked about the borders. There are entire denominations, y'all, that have given up on that, and they're all for open borders. I'll use one. I was in Rome last year on a Steps of Paul tour with a pastor buddy from California, is one of my mentors, and it was about the time the Pope came out and said, we ought to have open borders. And I'm standing beside a 15-foot thick wall that's about 20 feet high and all these fancy dressed guards. And I'm thinking, he ain't exactly practicing what he's preaching, as we say in South Carolina. So they're hypocritical, y'all. They're hypocritical and they're dishonest. And nowhere in the Bible does it say get rid of the borders. It says remember the landmarks, remember the former things, over and over and over. Remember is used like 360 something times in the Bible. Remember, and a lot of it's reinforcing what your boundaries are and where you live and what you stand for.
You know, he turned around to his disciples and said, go out and preach. He didn't say have them come into you and you just sit there on your throne and lecture them.
Right.
He said go
Amen.
out and spread the word. So yeah,
Amen.
he did leave the borders. I mean, I listened. I had a pastor from the pulpit when they passed that thing in the Supreme Court about weddings, whether or not the government is going to be the one determining whether or not your religion can do same-sex marriage or whatever it is. And our pastor is turning around and says, no, well, our faith says this, but if you want to go join another denomination that believes in that you're free to do. But this is what our faith stands for. And you know what? He was forced to back down on a statement that he said in his sermon. We need to support these preachers. We need to support these priests and ministers and whatever your rabbis. We need to support them to tell the truth. And when they do, help defend them. And that's one of the things you teach your guys to do. You have actually been bringing people to the Christian faith as well as getting registered to vote. And you're doing such fantastic and marvelous work. People can find you at faithwins.org. You know, there's so much more I want to talk about because I was watching these groups with the LBG, whatever community, and the Rainbow Bridge, whatever they call it.
The alphabet soup at this point.
No, that's right. LGBTQRSTUVWXYZ.
Plus.
But they're trying to usurp what the rainbow meant in the Bible. They're usurping what a lot of this is, and we have to stick by the truth and what is actually written there. And I mean, having a show like this is one of the things that helps do that, and maybe brings more people to understand where we stand, why we think the way we think, because we're more worried about not just the inner selves of us, but everyone else around us to bring us to faith and to love.
Amen.
Well, this is what I talk about when I talk about talking politics and religion with the people that you know. Can't be afraid to do it, and yes, sometimes it takes some articulate nuance. But if we don't have the conversations, we can't find out what we have in common.
That's right.
You know, we can certainly know without having deep conversations what we don't have in common. But the commonality that makes us all one, going back to E pluribus unum again, we can't find that out if we're just staring into a phone or only believing what we want to believe. So,
yeah,
you know, we're about to celebrate 250 years of the longest standing constitutional republic in the history of man. I don't know if y'all know this. The average age of the governance in society in 5,800 years of recorded history is about 17 years. So when we say American exceptionalism, it doesn't mean we're better than, but we have created an exceptional form of government, but it's predicated on us, our responsibilities and accountability. Self-government was never meant to be done by the state. It was meant all of us to govern ourselves. And clearly a lot of people, you know, if you're the most ardent atheist or leftist, you ought to appreciate that rights don't change because it's Tuesday or Friday or a different wind blow, you know, direction of the wind blowing. You ought to appreciate their stability. And I think that these 35 words, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That some of the most remarkable human inspired, but certainly God inspired words anybody ever put to paper outside of the Bible itself. And it reinforced it, built on the Judeo-Christian work ethic, the Judeo-Christian civilization. And it's like right now that Christianity is holding back Islam, the homosexual, militant homosexual movement, the Marxist. It's like we're holding the dam back from bursting. And I want to do everything I can to encourage everybody I can. Man, celebrate the 250th. Tell people the truth about American history. Take people, not just a fireworks show, not just a barbecue, but tell them stories. Y'all make sure you go to wallbuilders.com and look at some of Barton's stuff. He's isolated. The White House asked him to isolate as many places where God's role was prominent. I think he's at like 38 or something he's put there. And I've been reading my Sunday school class because there are things that people have forgotten and they don't know. And so teach your kids and your grandkids so that we don't lose this thing called freedom if Jesus tarries.
There's so much
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, there is so much truth. Someone had turned around and explained to someone that the path that Christ walked when he was on earth is in the Torah. They turned around and says all these things that the Jewish people believe in, they actually follow on the same date that you celebrate in Christ's path. So we are married together. So we have a direct connection with Israel, which is why I'm seeing that we're fighting to keep our relationship with them. We've got the Manamis out there that wants to free Palestine from the river to the sea. They don't understand what that truly means. And they're just mimicking the words without fully understanding them. But
it's the same problem, though, too, Ann. It's the reason the homosexual movements made a move into the Republican Party. It's the reason the pro-choice movements made a move into the Republican Party. The anti-Semitic, the anti-Israel movements made a move into the Republican Party. Is we don't have enough biblical worldview people. They don't have a foundation to their life that says, here's what I believe in. Listen, I grew up in a little tiny town in South Carolina. Nobody ever questioned my patriotism or faith. I go in the Army, I had an atheist in my tank. And, but it made me figure out, is this my faith or my dad's? Am I going to own this? Am I going to figure it out? That's probably what got me reading the Bible and getting committed to it as much as anything, is realizing I've got to own this. I'm the one responsible. And we got to go back and teach that to other people. You're responsible. And we just got to be able to give them the tools and resources to find it out.
But
that's going to be a big battle, because the Marxists here are saying it's not your responsibility. Government can take care of you, and that's one of the messages that the national apparatus is inept at bringing forward. The people, the kids, the generation that believes socialism is something that we might want to try. Maybe if it's done right, it might succeed. They are lacking that education and that understanding of how devastating the removal of individual freedom and responsibility actually is. And until that epiphany for each and every one of them, and thank God some of the younger kids are starting to have that epiphany over and over, and we're seeing those numbers climb and being more faith-oriented and more proud of their country and wanting to serve and do the right thing. Until those numbers climb, we've got a battle ahead of us with this Marxist left and the red-green movement here. They're not without potency, and we have to be very cautious of this going forward at every step.
That's exactly right. Jesus isn't controlling the media. He's not controlling the language that these sanctuary politicians are touting off, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to fight that. And it starts at home.
Y'all keep up the fight. I got to hop to the next one. Ann, love you, girl. God bless y'all. Stay in the fight. Happy 4th.
I will.
Happy 4th.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're down to our last couple of seconds. We really went down to the wire here. We had so much fun. Frank, you've got to come back on. People can find you on Substack. You're up on Facebook and a half a dozen other places I forget.
It was a pleasure being on, and I enjoyed my conversation with the both of you, and call on me anytime.
I'll have to give you a follow.
Website is under you. I'll talk to you later, Frank. God bless. All right, Hannah, we'll be back next week. I don't know exactly who our guests are, but it's the day before my mom's birthday, so I'm going to be going nuts. But I will see everyone next week. Same bad time, same bad station. Until then, I say good night and God bless.